Two death row inmates have been given stays of execution because the state says it doesn't have two of the drugs needed to carry out their executions. That is giving attorneys working on their behalf time to try and prove an Oklahoma law is unconstitutional because it keeps secret details about the lethal drugs used, including how they are obtained. The case has drawn national attention since Oklahoma's last execution was carried out in January.
Michael Lee Wilson met his punishment on January 9th for killing Tulsa convenience store employee Richard Yost in 1995. His execution began with the injection of a drug called pentobarbital, part of a 3-drug lethal cocktail. The pentobarbital dose renders a death row inmate unconscious. But before Wilson lost consciousness, he uttered these last words, "I feel my whole body burning." That outcry raises legal questions about whether his Eighth Amendment rights to be protected from cruel and unusual punishment were violated. But that legal argument can't be litigated if attorneys don't know what is in the drugs or where they come from. The Oklahoma Department of Corrections doesn't have to reveal that information, according to a state law passed in 2011.
And what the statute now says is all of this is secret. It used to not be secret. We used to be able to know where the drug came from. But now that it's no longer available on the open market, it's secret.
Attorneys Susanna Gattoni and Seth Day of Oklahoma City's Hall Estel law firm have filed a civil petition arguing that law is unconstitutional. The first reason being,
it cuts you off from a due process review by a court because the very information that you need to have to show that your Eighth Amendment right, which is the right to be free from cruel and unusual punishment, a court can't even look at that because they don't even know what drug's being used to execute you, or the source of the drug, I should say.
And Seth Day says the second reason is the law exempts DOC from the Oklahoma Purchasing Act when it comes to buying execution drugs.
So there's not a competitive bidding process. There's not going to be any receipts published so the public can know essentially how much they're spending of taxpayer dollars on buying the execution drugs.
The secrecy law came on the books after prison systems across the nation couldn't find the drugs to purchase.
Number one drug became unavailable on the FDA open market to any Department of Correction in the United States. So that raised a problem for the states.
That FDA-approved drug from Lundbeck Pharmaceuticals moved the manufacture of the drug to its Italy operations, joining other drug companies in Europe and Canada where capital punishment is not allowed. Lynn Ensroth is an associate dean at the University of Tulsa College of Law, an expert on the death penalty, and co-author of the casebook Capital Punishment and the Judicial Process.
The companies that manufactured the drug that rendered the individual unconscious so that they would not feel any pain and suffering are based in either Europe or in Canada, and those companies specifically provided that their drug could not be used for executions, that violated their corporate values.
Death row inmates Clayton Darrell Lockett and Charles Frederick Warner were both scheduled to be executed this month. That is, until the Oklahoma Court of Criminal Appeals ordered stays of execution for the men after the Attorney General's office revealed DOC didn't have the drugs needed to kill them. The brief filed by the state reads, ODOC and the Attorney General's office have been informed by multiple sources that pentobarbital remains in short supply and zirconium bromide is now difficult, if not impossible, even for hospitals and medical professionals to obtain. At present time, the state has pursued every feasible option to obtain the necessary execution drugs. This has been a Herculean effort undertaken with the sole objective of carrying out ODOC's duty under Oklahoma law to conduct the appellant's executions. Sadly, this effort has, so far, been unsuccessful. The stays of execution give Gattoni and Day a little more time to prove to an Oklahoma County District Judge the 2011 law pertaining to the execution drugs is unconstitutional.
If we're going to have the power that the state has, which is to take a life, we expect that they do it legally and they do it where we can all understand what they're doing. That's simply all we're asking. And we think those rights outweigh any privacy concerns that the state may have for people that are involved in the process.
Attorney General Scott Pruitt sees it another way. In a statement, he said, "I am upset that justice is once again delayed for Stephanie Neiman and young Adriana Waller and their families. This delay is not about the facts of the case, nor does it seek to overturn the convictions of these two murderers. Instead, it's about outside forces employing threats, intimidation, and coercion to keep the state of Oklahoma from imposing the punishment handed down for these heinous crimes. But rest assured, accountability for these murders will occur. It's not a matter of if these punishments will be carried out, but it is only a matter of when."
So I would say I respectfully disagree with our Attorney General.
I agree with Susanna's comments, and I'd also like to say that most people that oppose the death penalty aren't interested in making physical threats. I hope he's not referring to us, because the attorney generals that have worked on this case have been nothing but professional, and I hope they would say the same about us.
The executions of Lockett and Warner have been rescheduled for April. The Attorney General's brief says the state will continue to pursue any and all leads in an attempt to obtain the necessary execution drugs in the days leading up to the scheduled executions of Lockett and Warner. Should the drugs become available, ODOC intends to proceed forward with these executions as scheduled if appellants' execution dates have not passed. Gattoni and Day hope DOC won't take the same approach as used in Nebraska.
Nebraska had actually purchased enough pentobarbital from India for 166 executions. I can tell you that if an individual purchased drugs from India and distributed them here in the state, it would be a violation of the FDCA, the Federal Drug and Cosmetic Act. I don't believe that states should be allowed to violate federal law in order to perform executions.
The hearing on the constitutionality of Oklahoma's execution secrecy law will be held on March 26th, with a ruling expected shortly thereafter.